Okay, I need to talk to you about the elephant in the wizarding world. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. Did you know that statistically, consistently, this is one of the least favorite Harry Potter films among fans? For some people, it's too slow or too long, there's too much camping, not enough magic. Where is the action? Where's Hogwarts? Why does nothing happen actually? And here is what I want to say to every single person who has ever felt this way. You're not wrong, but also you completely missed what this film is actually doing. Because part 1 of The Deathly Hallows is not a flaw in the Harry Potter saga. It is the most important lesson in the entire series. And the reason so many of us resist it is exactly the point. Welcome, witches, wizards, and magical souls. I solemnly swear that your magic is limitless. I'm Alice, and this is the channel where we go further into your magic. Subscribe if you haven't already. So before we dive in, let's just acknowledge the facts. You can ask any group of Harry Potter fans to rank the films, and part 1 of the Deathly Hallows consistently lands near the bottom. Reddit threads, fan polls, YouTube comment sections, the verdict is quite consistent. You're gonna hear and you're gonna read, it's boring, nothing happens, the camping is going on forever, I fall asleep every time, such things. And here is what is fascinating. Because when you look at the film, the famous camping session, the part everyone complains about, it takes approximately 30 minutes of screen. 30 minutes out of 146 minutes of film. And in the books, the equivalent section covers about 4 chapters out of 36. So, that part that feels like forever is actually a tiny fraction of the story. Which means the problem isn't the camping, but the problem is what the camping represents. And that is where it gets very interesting. Are you ready? So, every great story has one. Joseph Campbell calls it the dark night of the soul. This is the moment of the hero's journey when everything is falling apart, when the path forward is completely invisible, when the hero has lost their mentor, their community, their certainty, and he has nothing left but the choice to keep going or give up. Dumbledore is dead, Hogwarts is unreachable, the Ministry has fallen, the Wizarding World is under Voldemort's control, Harry, Ron, and Hermione are alone in a tent in the middle of nowhere, with a mission they don't know how to complete, a sword that they don't have, and a Horcrux around their neck that is slowly poisoning their thoughts. And this is not bad storytelling. It's actually the most honest moment of the entire saga. Because this is what transformation actually looks like from the inside. Not the dramatic duel, not the triumphant arrival, not the moment of sudden revelation, but the actual transformation is the part before all of that. The part where you don't know if it's working, the part where you can't see the end, the part where everything feels stuck and heavy and uncertain, and you have to keep going. What is great is that J.K. Rowling didn't skip this part. She lived in it for 30 minutes of film and 4 chapters of the book, because it is real and it really matters. So let's talk about the locket, the central part of this episode. This is the Horcrux they carry, but they cannot yet destroy. The one that they take turns wearing, because its darkness is too heavy for one person to carry alone. And here is what the locket does. It amplifies everything. Every insecurity, every fear, every moment of self-doubt and resentment and hopelessness. It takes what's already here and turns up the volume until it's all that you can hear. And indeed, Ron, wearing the locket, becomes consumed by his oldest wounds. The fear that he is not enough. That Harry is always the chosen one and he's just the sidekick. The fear that Hermione loves Harry more than him. That he will never measure up. And these, they are not new fears. They've been here since book 1, since the beginning, since they encountered each other. The locket just makes them louder than everything else. And I want you to sit with that image for a moment. Because we all have a locket. The belief system, the old story, the inner voice that gets loudest exactly when we are in our own dark night of the soul. When we are tired. When we can't see progress. when the path forwards is invisible. This isn't working. I'm not enough. Everyone else has figured this out, except me. Maybe I should just go back to what I knew. And all these voices inside your head, that's actually the locket talking. And just like in the film, the answer is not to pretend that it doesn't exist, that it isn't heavy. The answer is to keep carrying it together until you find a way to destroy it for real. And then, at one point, Ron is leaving. He takes off the locket and then takes off into the cold and dark nights, back towards everything familiar and safe, and far away from this impossible mission in the middle of nowhere. And I want to be honest with you. I understand Ron completely, and I do think that all of us do. We have all been Ron at one moment during our life. The moment in the process where we have had enough, where the discomfort overweights the vision, where we pack up our metaphorical tent and head for the door. Usually, quitting feels like a relief, but just for about 5 minutes. And then it feels like something else. And Ron knows too, because he comes back. He wants to come back the moment he leaves. And when he comes back, guided by the light of the deluminator, drawn by the people he likes, back to the mission, he arrives exactly in time to do the one thing only he could do in that moment: to pull Harry from the frozen lake, to destroy the locket. His leaving was not the end of the story, but it was part of it. And this is what I want you to hear. The dark night of the soul is not evidence that you're failing. It is evidence that you are in the middle of something real. Ron's return doesn't erase his leaving, but his leaving doesn't erase what he came back to do. Both of these events are part of the journey. And now let's talk about Hermione. Hermione is very important to Harry in this first episode of Deathly Hallows. She never leaves. She stays with Harry, and not because she's not exhausted, or because she's not scared, or uncertain, or grieving Dumbledore, or missing her parents, whose memory she erased to keep them safe. But she's actually staying because Hermione trusts something that Ron, in that moment, can't access. She trusts the process. She keeps the beaded bag packed and organized. She keeps researching. She keeps thinking. She keeps showing up. Not because she can see the end, but because she has decided that giving up is not an option for her. And Hermione in Deathly Hallows Part 1 is the embodiment of what the Hufflepuff energy we talked about in an earlier video actually looks like in the dark. She's patient, she's consistent, she's loyal, she's refusing to mistake no visible progress for no progress at all. Because here is the truth of what this Part 1 is quietly, insistently teaching us. What looks like nothing happening is rarely nothing happening. So you're gonna ask, what's actually happening during the camping, right? Okay, so let's look at what happens during those 30 minutes of camping that everyone finds so unbearable. On the surface, there are three teenagers in a tent, barely speaking and going nowhere. But underneath, Harry is integrating everything he has lost, processing the grief for Dumbledore, for the world he knew, for the certainty that used to carry him. And this processing is not visible, especially not in the film. It doesn't look like anything, but without it, he cannot become who he needs to be. So the trio's friendship is being tested and forged into something stronger. The version of the bond that will carry them through the final battle is built in those silent, difficult, uncomfortable weeks. And Harry is learning, for the first time of his life, to act without a teacher, without a mentor, without Dumbledore's guidance, without the reassurance that someone older and wiser knows the answer. He is learning to trust himself. Do you realize how important that is in one's life? And meanwhile, the rest of the wizarding world is showing its true face. Who collaborates with Voldemort? Who resists? Who hides? In the end, the landscape of the final battle is being drawn at this moment. None of this looks like progress, but all of it is essential. And this is the mirror that Deathly Hallows Part 1 holds up to every single viewer who watches it and feels frustrated. Because the discomfort you feel watching them doing nothing is the same discomfort you feel in your own period of apparent stagnation. You can feel the same impatience, the same why isn't anything happening, the same desperate wish to fast forward to the part everything works. But the reality is that you can't fast forward the dark night of the soul. You can only leave it and wait, accept it, and trust that it's doing something, even when you can't see it. So let me ask you, where in your life are you currently in your own Deathly Hallows Part 1? Maybe the project that isn't gaining traction yet, or the relationship that's going through a complicated season. Maybe it's the version of yourself you're growing into, but you can't quite see yet. This is the place where you're carrying the locket and it's heavy, and the progress is invisible, and some part of you wants to pack up the tent and go back to what was familiar. Here is what I want you to take from Harry, Ron, and Hermione in that forest. First, name the locket. What is the story that gets loudest when you're tired and uncertain? What story are you telling yourself? What is the voice that tells you it's not working, you're not enough, you should give up? Name it, see it, and don't let it pretend to be the truth. Second, stay in the tent. Not forever, but for today. One more day of showing up, even if the progress is invisible. Even if you can't see the patronus yet. And third, if you have already left like Ron, you can come back. The mission doesn't end because you needed a break. Your people are still in the tent and the work is still there. And sometimes the time away gives you exactly what you needed to do, the thing only you can do when you return. Just remember, the dark night of the soul is not a punishment, it is a preparation. And the reason Deathly Hallows Part 1 feels so uncomfortable to watch is because it is showing us something true about ourselves that we don't want to see, most of us. We actually want the action, we want the magic, we want the moment when everything clicks. But the clicking, the real, lasting, deep clicking, can only come after the camping, after the dark night of the soul, always. So, Deathly Hallows Part 1 is not the weakest Harry Potter film. It is actually the bravest, because it refused to skip the part that actually matters, the part where the hero doesn't know what to do, the part where the path is invisible, where keeping going feels impossible and quitting feels reasonable. This part is just the place where magic starts. J.K. Rowling lived it, in a flat in Edinburgh, as a single mum, writing in cafes, not knowing if any of it would work. Harry lived it, in a tent in the Scottish Highlands, cold and scared, and carrying something unbearably heavy. And you are living it, wherever you are right now in your own story. Don't skip it. Don't rush it. Don't mistake the absence of visible results for the absence of transformation. You are in the forest at the moment, and the Patronus is coming. Subscribe so that you don't miss what's next, because every week we're going to find another piece of the map in the wizarding world, another piece of your personal map. And leave me a comment below. Where are you in your own Deathly Hallows Part 1 right now? What's the locket you're carrying? I'm Alice. See you next week. Until the next time, remember, the one chooses the wizard, but you chooses everything else. May your choices be your magic.